Okay, the big day. This is the one that I have been dreading. Dropping the transmission. It's a moment of truth. I have my transmission up on my jack and it is strapped onto my jack too, so it won't fall off. And the jack is pressed firmly on it, so it should be holding the weight of the transmission now. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the mounts off the transmission. So to do this, there are these two 13mm nuts, one on this side and one on the opposite side, which you probably can't see. I'm gonna take those off first, but I will not touch this because this will actually damage the transmission mount. So I'm gonna take these two off first, and then with a 13mm socket, and then these off with a 16mm socket. Now, it's worth pointing out that when I do this, I'm going to try and not put my body underneath the transmission, because yeah, I can see that going horribly wrong. Now, these two 13mm nuts come off first. I'm gonna use a 13mm socket and a 13mm wrench right there on the top because they are bolts. They'll spin if you don't put something up there on the top. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm gonna try and sit well clear of the transmission just in case it drops, because that would be horribly bad. In general, you should never trust a jack to hold something, just to lift something. So right now, the jack is holding the transmission, or it will be as soon as these are loose. There we go. Same thing on the back side. 13mm socket on the bottom and 13mm wrench on the top. Okay, there's the second bolt. Now that I've removed both of these bolts, I'm gonna remove these 16mm bolts. So it's in order, this, then this. So here's the bottom one that's loose, and now I'm going to the top one up here. Okay. So now that is the transmission mount, and I can remove it completely. Over here on the right side of the transmission, this bottom one is actually has a nut, 15mm nut here, and a 15mm socket here, and that's how I'm going to try and get that off of there. Now the bottommost ones are 15mm, but the ones above are 16, I believe, slightly larger, yeah. So this bottom one, it's one of these multi-point, I think like 12-point bolts. Unfortunately, it's kind of awkward, of course. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen the other ones. If you move over to the top of the car, you can actually see this bolt right here. It would be pretty difficult to get from underneath, but it's pretty accessible from the top. So I have my 16 millimeter end wrench for this because the socket wrench wouldn't fit. And I've got a bit of a cheater bar. That is loose. Again, I'm gonna leave it on there a little bit, just so when they're all loose, I can tell, kind of make sure that my jack and everything is holding the weight like it's supposed to. Okay, I believe everything is loose from the transmission. All 8 bolts are removed. So I'm now gonna try and pull it back out of the engine and then very slowly and carefully drop it down and check and make sure I didn't forget to disconnect anything or nothing's caught or anything. Hey, there we go. Yes. All right. So, seems to be free of the engine. Carefully lower it down. Looks good. Yeah, so far so good. Gonna lower it down a little more. I'm just checking to make sure there's nothing that's catching. There's the backup cable, shifter cables, everything's loose. Okay, lower it down a little more. Pull it back, lower it down, pull it back. Yes. There it is. That was easy. So altogether here, I ended up jacking my car up about 23 inches. But now that I have it out, I actually see it's went up to 20 inches. So I had a few inches of wiggle room there to get this out. Basically this transmission, sitting like it does in the car, is maybe 17, 18 inches high. And then whatever height you have with your jack and the transmission holder, you need to add to that. So my total height here was 20 inches, and I jacked my car up to about 23 inches, which was no trouble to lower it down and drag it all the way out. It was actually pretty easy. I've also noticed that the transmission is lighter than I anticipated. Yeah, look at that. Anyway, it's out.